And here comes Tennie. Maybe.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just about almost missed this. About to woke up late this morning and then just resting in bed. Next thing I looked at the clock and said, "Gosh darn it."
Well, it looks like your little puppy's going back to bed behind you.
Yeah.
He's curling up on the pillows.
Oh, they're having a blast because my neighbor next door is having a new roof put on their house. I still haven't got mine, but so they are bang bang, and the dogs go bark 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 together.
So they're getting their exercise.
Yes, very much so, getting their exercise. How are you
Morning.
today?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Tennie.
How are y'all this morning? Good to see everyone. Good morning, good morning. Let's talk about relapse next week. What's the matter?
That's all right. I'm just trying to get this back to where I had it. My little cricket.
Well, there's John and Adrian and TJ. There's Diane. We missed you last week, Diane. And there is Miss Jackie and Nita and Sally. And there's Taylor. Oh, yeah. Patty, Sarah, Deb, and David. There's Mr. John. I think I mentioned him. Good to see you. And Jody. All righty.
You ready?
I'm ready when y'all are.
Go for it. I've got 10 o'clock.
Okie dokie. All righty. So we were going to talk today about, inside every storm, there is peace. There is my friend Charles. I see him on there. Anyway, I wanted to talk about spiritual storms in relation to, physical storms. And we are living, I think, that we are living in a spiritual storm right now in our entire world. Everything, I think, is in turmoil. It's in a spiritual storm. It's like, just notice the hurricanes, the horrendous fires, the flooding. I mean, go on and on and on. And then top that with COVID. It is I call it spiritual warfare. I don't know, but anyway, I think it's everywhere. And I think that we can create it, spiritual warfare inside ourselves. And so, the people who live on those coastal regions of any country that live in hurricane prone districts and states, they stay prepared for it. I hear Sally talking about she works on a hurricane preparedness committee. I think she's chairman of it because they know sometime in the hurricane season, they are out to get a hurricane. So they don't wait until they get the weather report. They are prepared before it comes. And that's what I think that sometimes we don't do in our own storms, our emotional storms. Do we prepare enough? Are we ready for those emotional storms, or do we give in? For addicts, what we do if we don't prepare ourselves mentally and emotionally for those emotional storms, our brain will tell us how to get relief as addicts. When we're in the midst of turmoil, our brain will say, well, You know, you've got something in the kitchen, go eat or go drink or go whatever your addiction is. You know, go look at porn on the internet, go do this, go do that. That is what our addiction tells us. So we have, you know, those of us that are addicts and deal with addiction every day, we have to prepare. And, you know, the 12 steps, that's what our guide is. But I think sometimes in the moment, there's some things that we could do in the moment to prepare ourselves for the emotional storms. Any of you have emotional storms? Shake your head if you have emotional storms. And, you know, when we're in the midst of it, it's like, oh my God, what do I need to do now, you know? And that's the best thing, because that is a prayer. Oh my God. I mean, that is a prayer. With Misty's permission, I was going to share something. She, on Sunday, wasn't it Sunday, found a large mass in one of her breasts. I mean, hard, large mass. Well, I have my doctor is a good friend of ours, and I had a private number, and she's also Misty's number. So I called her on Sunday, and it frightened her, I believe, because she got a technician in on Monday to go ahead to do a mammogram and a ultrasound, because it was serious. It could have been serious. And so, you know, rather than going into hysterics, you know, there's a part of me that did, oh my gosh, you know, and fast forward, you know, well, what if this, what if that, what if it is malignant, and how will we deal with the children, and how will we, you know, what find people to sit with her? I'll sit with her while she's doing chemo. And then her mother and I were sitting while she was getting the x-ray, and Rose and I figured out a kind of a schedule, anyway. We were prepared. We prepared for the storm that didn't come. We also sat out there. They wouldn't even let us sit in the lobby on kind of COVID, you know. They would let one person. Well, I wanted Rose to sit there because she's the mother. And she said, no, you need to sit there because she wants you near her. Anyway, so we both just sat outside in the foyer and waited, and saw half of Abilene come through there. But anyway, nevertheless, we sat out there, and what we did is we held hands. We didn't just awfulize, we didn't stay in the future, but we did talk about the possibility, you know. But we held hands, and we prayed, and we prayed, and we prayed. And when Misty came out, the technician had told her already that she had a cyst, and it was not malignant. So we were, you know, praising God, and I'm grateful that there was a part of me that wanted to just scream and cry, and, you know, it doesn't do any good. It's about staying calm in the midst and seeing what we can do. And the thing that we could do is we had her chemo appointments all figured out, who could watch the boys and who could go say what. But what we did do was get still, and we prayed. And anyway, so just wanted to tell you, you know, talk about, we need to stay prepared for those emotional storms, because guess what? They're going to come. They're going to hit us, and sometimes they hit us when we are least expecting them. So we need to stay, you know, be prepared for the storms. And it's those, we just can't get around having life storms. None of us are immune to them. So one of the things that I call them, spirituality storms. I mean, it's like a spiritual storm at times. And the fact is, sometimes as spiritual as we think we are, for moments, we can just sort of forget that and take it back to ourselves and think that we have got to figure out the answer. We can't, but God can and will if we will seek Him, you know. So I want to just kind of give you some, just kind of go down a list of some things that we might could do. Is one of the things is our attitude toward the emotional storm. Look what your attitude is, and define your level of success in the past of working through storms. When we have an emotional storm, we think, I mean, we've never been there before. I mean, what are we going to do? And so define how you successfully work through something before. And then what will happen is as we get in the center or get in the midst of the storm, not in the center of it, but when you get in the midst of the storm, what you're going to find, or what all of us will find, it will reveal to us our weaknesses. It will reveal to us what we need to work on. Every time we will see our strong points and our weaknesses. And by ourselves, I don't believe we can do much. But we do, have to prepare ourselves. And so what happens then is when we're in that emotional storm, it can reveal to us how unprepared we are. And how I was taught in the 12-step program to prepare is we only, and y'all know this, you're big book thumpers, you're 12-steppers, but the only answer is to any problem is to stay in fit spiritual condition. And that's based, we only get a daily reprieve contingent on staying in fit spiritual condition. So it's kind of like you open a savings account and you put in, every paycheck or whatever, you put in money. And then if maybe you're saving for something, maybe a disaster happens, something happens, but you've put that money in a savings. That's like our program. That is like, spirituality. That is what we do every day in a 12-step program, is we add to that savings account spiritually by inviting God into our life every morning, every single solitary morning. And then, where it talks about in step 11 on page 86, 87, any time of the day or night, we can pause and seek God's will. We can pause in the midst of whatever's going on and say, God, help me. We don't have to just do it, make conscious contact of a morning, and then thank Him at night. All through the day, we can pause and ask Him, invite Him into whatever storm that we're going through. And also don't forget to thank Him. Sometimes we'll, have a crisis and then we, just pray and pray and pray. And then the crisis is over and it's like, okay, I'll check you later, God. It's like we don't, are sometimes thankful enough and give Him the credit. So we have to see the flaws in our plan that might lead to disaster in the first place. The flaw in a plan for a 12-step person, a flaw is stop doing those 5 things to stay in recovery every day. Those 5 things. Get up of a morning and turn your will in your life over to the care of God and ask for another day of recovery. And then we get up off our knees. And I was taught to get up off my knees, off my ass, and go to work and, read some program literature, work the steps with the sponsor, go to meetings, get with like kind, and that's hard in today's time. I'll tell you, I have not been to a face-to-face meeting since the pandemic started. I keep calling and thinking that I will, and then my kids, because of us really wanting to protect our clients and our staff, we lay real low. I mean, and so meetings, face-to-face meetings are hard to get to. So anyway, that's the fourth thing, meetings, get with like kind. And then the fifth thing is give away what you have, teach it to someone else. If you want to know how to stay in recovery, sponsor people. And what will happen is when you sponsor people, we usually teach what we need to learn. As you sponsor people, and it may not even be someone you're sponsoring, just someone that that calls you about a problem. You're gonna, when in talking with them, you're gonna find out that you know a whole lot more about the solution than you thought. So anyway, be prepared and don't. And if there is a flaw in your, disaster plan, beef it up. So another thing is, and I do this when I do it in nearly every intensive, or when I'm working over at the center with clients and we're doing shame and anger reduction work or whatever, when we're doing some deep work, at the end of it, this is an exercise that I would encourage every one of you to do when you get into that, oh my God, what's going to happen when that, that fear of the storm come, things are happening. One thing is to take a deep breath. Like if you're going to take in a deep breath, take in and count to 4 or 5, whatever the number. I'm going to say count to 4 and then bend over at your waist and bend down as far as you can. And when you go down, exhale, and I know this is kind of different from what you've learned about exercise and all, but when you go down, exhale. If you've taken in 4 breaths, exhale 5. Go, I count to 5 and blow it all out. Come back up, breathe, go back down and blow it out. And then I add another thing to that when I'm doing this with clients. While we're down there, I have them to shake off all of the negativity, anything that's in the room. I have them to shake it off. And then I have them to make a noise. I say, make a sound like a siren. And when we come up, we go, anyway. And by the end of about 3 times, that whole room is vibrating. And so that helps. Gets the energy going and the negativity out of the system. So storms, sometimes emotional storms, can be a time of creativity. Look what the pandemic has given us. I mean, we have gotten very creative in ways to, there have people that have made their own sanitizer, when sanitizer was so short. Who would have ever thought to make sanitizer? The only reason that they did is because there was a shortage. Now, I don't know of anyone that made toilet paper. I don't know, when there's a shortage of toilet paper, I don't know. And they don't even have Sears catalogs anymore. When I grew up, and I'm telling my age, it was after World War II, and you could not get anything. We could not get a commode, and that's what I wanted on my 4th birthday, was a commode, so we could have an inside toilet. And my mother got me, and a neighbor friend smoked a pipe, and I loved to smell that pipe smoke. So when I was 4, I wanted a commode and a pipe to smoke. Because I like the smell. And so she got me a little toy commode and a corn cob pipe. Well, I threw both of them. I didn't want either one of them. I wanted a real pipe with tobacco, and I wanted a real commode. I was pretty sassy and feisty even back then. And so we had an outdoor toilet. Everyone did. It wasn't just us. Not everyone, but people in our area did. And, thank God there were because there was a shortage of paper during there's a shortage of everything during World War II. And so Sears Roebuck Catalog was out there, so you can read it and use it for other things. So anyway, all right, I don't know why I got off of that. I got into rabbit trailing right there. There goes my ADD. Okay, so do the breathing. That will manage, even if you don't bend over, breathe, take some breaths, stop, take a deep breath in, and then exhale it out. And, like I said, count whatever the denomination is, breathe in 4, breathe out 5, and just get it all out. Okay, and this is a biggie, is to be aware, increase your awareness of your emotions, of your feelings. We are human beings. We are feelers. We are feeling people. And so it's about noticing your emotions and your feelings, and how when you're in the midst of an emotional storm, those feelings are magnified. And it is about being willing to identify the feelings instead of just staying in a whirlwind. It is about stopping in the midst of that going on in your head. Do y'all know what I'm talking about when I do that? Do y'all have that stuff going on in your head? No. It's about stopping in the midst of it and really identifying what the feeling is, what that emotion is. Because sometimes we just act crazy, or we feel crazy on the inside. And if we're not careful, we'll act crazy on the outside. Have you ever acted crazy on the outside? Y'all probably haven't. I mean, early, y'all lie about other things too. But before recovery, I was a crazy maniac. I mean, I would, get all upset. It was usually about either my mother drinking or my husband drinking. But anyway, nevertheless, I would get in an emotional storm and I would not know what to do about it. So what I do is rage and scream and holler and, usually at my kids, abuse my children through my mouth. And so, in recovery, push that pause button and really notice the feelings. What is this feeling that I'm feeling? And then it's just increase your awareness instead of trying to escape the feeling, like I said earlier, through addiction, or trying to, even if you're not a work addict, when you have feelings going, a lot of times people want to get out and work it off. But I'll tell you, our feelings tell us a lot about ourselves. And if we'll notice what the feeling is, identify the feeling. And one of the ways is to validate your feelings. Validate what you are feeling. See, feelings, y'all hear this all the time when you come here. Feelings are not bad or good. They just are. They are feelings. I don't know, because I'm not an animal, and I do love animals, but I'm not like some of y'all that are real animal lovers. I'm sure animals have feelings, and I'm sure they have emotions. I don't know, but I do know God gave feelings to human beings. They're part of who we are. So it's about being able to be still long enough to identify what the feeling is, own the feeling. And I think people, especially early in recovery, I don't know why they get the idea that they're not going to ever have a bad day. Guess what? You are, because that's what life's all about. And storms are going to come your way, emotional storms. And by the grace of God, and it is by the grace of God, and action on your part, you won't reach out for a substance. You'll sit and you'll feel the feelings. And one of the things is pen to paper, or is two of the best tools that you can have. Pick up a pen and write out the feelings. It doesn't matter what you're writing, just write it out and see if you can identify the feeling. Identify what is the feeling. Maybe you are scared to death. Maybe you're, write it out. Fear. anger, whatever it is, write it out. And then, and then validate it. Validate it's okay to have it. And then with people in 12-step programs, we have a built-in system and the 12-step program that I don't know of any other system that has it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are. But what we have the gift of, if we will avail ourselves to it, is sponsors. Now they don't say sponsor in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. They didn't have that term. But Evie took the message to Bill W. And what Bill from that point on referred to Evie as his beloved. His beloved. That's pretty strong language, isn't it? His beloved. And we are in a program that there are beloved people, and we become beloved people if we're willing to help someone else. And so we have that built-in tool, we have access to it, and it's called sponsorship. When you have those feelings to come up, guess what? You don't have to experience that by yourself. You're not alone in this deal. And what I always tell people, and I was told this and early on, is to have at least 3 people, and they don't all have to be sponsors, but one of them includes your sponsor, but have 3 safe people in the program that you trust and that you believe in, that they will tell you the truth. And when you're in the midst of a storm, call all 3 of them. Now, I had 3, and I'd always like to call the first one first, because the first one would say, well, just bless your heart. It would usually be about I was mad at my husband for getting drunk, and she'd kind of help me get mad at him with me, She would join my team and we could be mad at it. But anyway, she would just bless my heart and just love me and just, be so kind to me, and then but she would say, go to the big book, or if it was an Al-Anon, she'd give me a page to read out of the Al-Anon book, or, call a newcomer an Al-Anon, or go to Al-Anon, or whatever, and then I would call the next one. And then the next one would be, all business, and she would, give me some, directions. And then this third one, I did not want to call her. I did not, but I'd always call her, and she cussed like a sailor. And she would, just kind of start out by cussing me out. Well, the answers. And so she'd give me absolutely some direct action to take after she kind of cussed me out a little bit. But she would always hang up loving me. All 3 of them would, but so I got basically the same answer from all 3 of them, just a little different presentation. But I always called the first one first because she was just so loving and, took my side to everything. Don't we love people that will take our sides even when we're wrong? So, speak it out loud. When you have a feeling coming up, don't keep it to yourself, because it will grow. Speak it out loud, write it out, speak it out loud. And, I keep going back to, that will increase your awareness of how to identify feelings. And then it will validate your reality when you call someone else and speak it out loud. And sponsors will mirror back to you. They'll mirror back what they heard you say. So, all right. Another thing then is, and this is not easy. I'm going to say it, but it's not easy. And I've been told this, and I practice this. I practice this on a daily basis, so I know it works. Is when you get into that negative place that, those feelings come up. And this is good for people with anxiety to practice. And it is about using the brain that God gave us. And that is about switching switching that thought pattern. And the more you do it, the more your brain will receive it. You know, if you're thinking negative about something or someone, twist it, you know, turn it to a positive thought about that person. Or if you're angry, you know, anything that any of those thoughts, think the opposite. Do y'all think that's possible? Do y'all use that technique, thinking the opposite? Now, sometimes we're all addicts are so self-centered. Sometimes we just love the agony. We just love the feelings of being in the middle of a storm that we can't figure out the answer to. So we just run around like, you know, I talked last week about like Henny Penny, you know, the sky's falling, you know, and it was thundering. So it is about being still. You know, my favorite verse in the Bible is be still and know that he is God. It's not you. He is God. And then break it down. Be still and know. Just be still and have a knowing that things are going to work out. I mean, you're going to get through it. And then be still. And then the last one is be, to just be in the moment and know that you are, we all are, I mean, we're precious children of God. And those of you who have children, do you love to watch your kids just be in absolute turmoil and running around crazy? Of course you do. Sometimes we have to let them do that until they ask for our help. But, you know, and God's the gentleman. He won't come in and take away our feelings without our invitation. But if we invite him into the center of the feelings in that emotional storm, he will absolutely be there. So that feeling that opposite works. And so when you're, you know, when you are present, when you get grounded in the moment of whatever's happening, what happens is you get rooted in love. When you stop and you get really centered, what you're going to find in the center of the turmoil is love. And, you know, you're going to become peaceful. You're going to find some calmness. And let me turn this page here to see my notes. But you will become peaceful and calm. You know, in the eye of a hurricane, we talked about that, you know, last week. They say it's about a 40-mile radius. That in, you know, in the eye of a horrendous hurricane is that there's peace and calm. I didn't know that. I mean, I've kind of heard it, but, you know. And so in the midst of every emotional storm that we have, that we find ourselves in the center of it can be calmness, peace, and love is the answer. Love is the answer. To love ourselves enough to not want to stay in that type of turmoil and chaos. And so when you're surrounded, and we are in today's time, our children, you know, I was thinking about my grandchildren this morning and great grands. I don't know, I can't have no idea what the great grandchildren, what kind of world they'll be living in. But I know that my grandchildren are living in an entirely different world than I grew up in. You know, when I look back, you know, I grew up in 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, life was pretty simple. You know, there was 1 or 2 TV shows, Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best. That was about, you know, so, and that's, by the way, is how I modeled my life, was Father Knows Best, you know, because I wanted that perfect 2-story house with, you know, roughly curtains on the windows, an American flag out front, and red geraniums out, you know, pot of red geraniums. It just looked like, you know, a perfect home. And I created that. I created that in my adult life. That my house looked a whole lot, not exactly, but a 2-story house that I got it all cozy looking. But inside that house during the, you know, before recovery, the store was inside that house. and I created most of it. I was married to, an alcoholic, this is the sweetest thing in the world until he wasn't, like most of us. But he didn't create, he did not create chaos. He was one of those silent drugs. He just wanted to drink and kind of pass out. And, he wasn't angry. And I would try to provoke that. I wanted him to get angry. So, because that's what I was raised in. I was raised in a storm, an emotional, screaming, raging household. And I thought if he loved me enough, he'd fight with me. I had that so mixed up. So anyway, while chaos, swirls around you, you can take charge of your innermost feelings. And it's about stopping, like I said, stopping in the midst of it and inviting God into that moment. This is the moment of power. Do y'all know right now is the moment? Right now is the moment of power. And when we get in the midst of any kind of turmoil, we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about the next hour or the next day or we're not thinking about staying really grounded and present in this moment. And that's really all we have on any given day is this moment. Now is the moment of power. And so if you, and just know we can change our inner reality anytime we want to. Do y'all believe you're that powerful? That you can change your own inner reality anytime you choose to. Do you believe that? Hello? Shake your head if you believe that. So it sounds to me like when we don't choose to live in inner harmony, what are we choosing? To live in chaos. It's a choice. It's a choice, really. Now bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen to good people. And so when, right at first, when there is some kind of a crisis, absolutely, we're all going to have those moments of, oh my God, what's going to happen? But it's important to get past those moments, and know that we're all in charge of our inner reality. I hate to tell you, you can't blame it on your mother anymore or your dad. You are in charge. If you want to live in chaos, go for it. If you want to live in inner peace, take charge of your life. And so when you do this and you can breathe again and you can feel the love flowing through you and in you, it's okay to love yourself. Do y'all know that? It is okay to love yourself. I always thought that was the most selfish thing in the world. It's the most unselfish thing in the world is to love yourself. That's what we learn in the program right at first. If you don't love yourself, how can you ever get clean and sober? How can you get, abstinent from your eating disorder? It starts with learning to love yourself. And that you are a precious child of God and God loved you first and all that. So through taking over and being in charge of your own inner reality, like I said, you can breathe again, you can breathe through it and you can find love. And suddenly you will find yourself in the center of the peace and the calm. And suddenly then you're truly living in the present and living in love, living in the moment. So remember this, and I'll say this all the time, but I just think it's fitting. With every breakdown, and we're going to have breakdowns. A crisis is a breakdown. We had a crisis Monday. It wasn't my crisis, but my friend, Misty, that I love and adore. That was a breakdown. We didn't know what it was, the results of the test was going to be, but there was a breakthrough. And I believe, regardless of what her diagnosis would have been, I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt there would have been a breakthrough. So with every breakdown, remember, with every breakdown, you're going to learn something from it. there's going to be a breakthrough. And if you're not paying attention to the breakdowns and what the lesson is for you inside that breakdown, I hate to tell you, but you're going to get to repeat that over and over and over until you learn the lesson. It's like, okay, God, I've got it. I've got it. You know, whether you're a severe anorexic and not feeding yourself appropriate, or bulimic, feeding yourself and throwing it up, or a compulsive overeater, or an alcoholic, sex addict, you go down the list. You go down the list. As long as you are taking charge of your disease, and I'm talking about taking charge, that when you are practicing your disease, there's not going to be a breakthrough. You're going to break down more and more and more and more. But if you're willing to stop in the midst of whatever the turmoil is, whether it's your active addiction or a hurricane that's on the way, if you can stop in the midst of it and be still and know that He is God, you will have a breakthrough at the end of whatever the crisis is. So that's what I have. And there's a lot of people, there's people on here that have had lots of breakdowns, and you have worked through them through the 12 steps and through taking action. Action is the magic word. If you want recovery, you take action. If you don't, just keep not taking action, and you'll wind up, if you have an addiction, you have 3 choices. That's recovery, die inside an institution, because after a while, you know, even some anorexics, when they get so bad and they refuse help, some young anorexics have had to be put in nursing homes just to be tube fed, because a hospital won't keep them. So be institutionalized, death, or recovery. 3 choices: institutionalized, death, or recovery. I choose recovery today. What about y'all? Y'all choose recovery? Okay, y'all share. This is your time. Thank y'all. Who's next? Come on. Come on, Sarah. You kept shaking your head. Are
Hey,
you in
Tennie.
the midst of a turmoil? Come on.
I've lived in turmoil before, yes.
I've got to Wayne for a minute. All righty. Tell us about being in the midst of a turmoil. How do you
All
get
right. I'm Sarah. I'm a codependent, sex addict, love addict, incest survivor, sex slave survivor, and a recovering self-mutilator. Not to hammer on my story or anything, I'm going to talk about it just very briefly. I really don't love talking about it today, but you know, I woke up in pools of my own blood twice. The first person that raped me was my mom. I got out of that situation around 18 and got right back into it with my biological father, who raped me for the first time on my 19th birthday, until I was about 23. So for decades of my life, my worth was solely dependent on sex. To mom, dad, I've had sex with almost everyone I'm related to. And then a whole plethora of other people, including extreme, brutal abuse, physical abuse. So what we've found today is that every single spirituality and religion principle talks about 3 different realms that you can live in. So Christians might use the word hell, heaven, and purgatory. The Toltecs would use the world of the first attention, second attention, and third attention. And from what I've gathered, Shade's language is victim, survivor, and thriver. And there are purposes for each of these 3 stages and realms that you will be in. We first have to master awareness, and then we have to master transformation. And then, of course, we master love, faith, truth, and love. And you get these awarenesses and masteries through going through these different realms of life. So all of them are completely necessary and good. There's no such thing as good or bad feelings. As Tennie was saying, everything can be used for good and bad, including things like the Bible. It's been used for plenty of wars in the past. So it depends on how we use it. Shame is the only emotion that separates us from animals. Going back to what Tennie was talking about earlier, shame is what gives us that humanity. So some of the most uncomfortable feelings that we feel are the ones that actually give us the most life and value and worth on the planet. Every emotion is good when used appropriately, and you have two options that you have two things you can do with every emotion you'll ever have in your entire life, and that's it. Some people might tell you there are more options than that. They're lying to you. You can choose to turn that emotion into a carried, denied, or induced emotion, exaggerate it, sit in the bleach, make it worse. Or you can choose to work through that emotion, give it to your higher power, and get the gifts of that emotion. So anger can become, motivation, energy, and strength. Fear becomes wisdom and protection. Pain can become healing and growth, so on and so forth. So every emotion is good when used appropriately. That's one of the best things to know. Anytime I'm feeling an emotion that I don't really love to feel, I don't really like feeling it, I'll just remind myself there are gifts of this too. Why do I have this feeling? What can I do with this feeling? And use it as the gift. And you can get there every single time with practice, of course, within 90 seconds. That is a 90-second rule, because all an emotion is a chemical being released by the brain. And if you don't perpetuate it, you'll get that gift within 90 seconds. You can feel anything for 90 seconds, and it usually takes much less time than that. But if it goes longer than that, you're inducing it, carrying it, or denying it. You can be 100% sure of that every time. And you have to realize that you're doing it to yourself. And that's one of the hardest things that I had to come to grips with. It took me years to stop blaming other people, but to take responsibility and accountability for my own life. Yes, I was a victim. Yes, I was victimized. Yes, I lived in the first attention. But then I became a survivor. And then I realized that no one was hurting me but me anymore. And I had to grow myself up. I had to learn how to reparent myself with love and compassion in a way that I wasn't given. And it's not fair. But the only person who was going to grow myself up was me. Yeah. And I did. And so I moved from survivor to then thriver, where I live every day with a lot of gratitude. They're not all great. I still feel pain. Sure, I do. Of course I do. But I know what to do with it when I do have it. And I talk about it, and I'm very honest in my life today. And lots of people know everything that gets going on in my life. I'm not very secretive. So there's all sorts of different realms. The storm is just trying to push you to the next realm.
That's right.
Sorry, that was a lot.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for doing Shades of Hope lecture. That's what you learned here, every word of it. I mean, every single solitary word is a lecture that you heard. There's only about 3 things that you didn't hear here. And that's good. And keep passing the word, because that is, that is, I'm glad that you learned that about the feelings, because that's the gifts that we get, and we miss the gifts a lot of times by not being willing to go through the feeling to the other side, to the gifts. So thanks for sharing, and I hope the clients are listening, because they've had their lecture for this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Tennie.
And you've used it to change your life. That's the
Yes.
point. That's the point. Miss Sally. Sally?
Yeah, for one thing, Sarah, why aren't you on staff at Shades? Just think about that. You should be.
I don't know
Now-
why she's not. Go ahead.
No, for me, I wish that back when I was really going through storms, not only just in the emotional storm of pain, physical storm of pain, and the heartache of pain, I wished that I had more people on my side and more people to say, gosh, you should go to a 12-step program where you go through that recovery process, because I now, since going to Shades and getting started in my recovery, I now can, when I get upset or angry or mad at something, I can stop myself and kind of say, okay, where's part one, part two, part three, and let's examine it that way, because back in the past I didn't. And so many times I felt going through my storms that, trying to take my life was the way out.
Yeah.
And, thank God, God was upstairs and he was, saying, nah, not your time yet. But I'm glad I'm at that point where now I can kind of process,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm learning about the 12 steps, and I'm learning about recovery and everything, is because I look at stuff as a process.
Yeah.
And I've got an example, like last night, after the alumni phone call, a friend called and oh, she was upset about something and she was getting on me about something. And I got so mad. I was just so frustrated with it. And when I hung up the phone, I could just have grabbed anything. Well, I grabbed my rubber bat and I just beat the hell out of my bed, because if not, I would have done something else that probably would have harmed myself, but I knew better. And I knew I had to get that anger, that out in a healthy way and not in a bad way. So I thank Shades for that.
All right, thanks, Sally. And you have come a million miles, and the secret of your recovery, success in recovery, is taking action. You have taken a lot of action, and that's what it takes. And those of us that are in 12-step programs, aren't we privileged? That's why you hear in meetings when people will say, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic or grateful recovering, compulsive overeater. I don't know that we're really grateful for the addiction, but we're grateful for having a place to go, that I am, because, I needed a 12-step program, and there's not an Idiots Anonymous to go to, so I'm glad I qualify for a 12-step program, because I acted like an idiot a lot of times. Okay, Joseph, what have you got to tell us?
Hey, good to see you. Good to see
you.
Joe, alcoholic addict, Al-Anon, love addict, all the good stuff. And I was thinking this year there's been a lot of like emotional, I don't know about storms, but 2021 has sucked, like for like friends and family and stuff like that. There's just been a lot of stuff that, death and, and stuff going on. And I felt present in all of it, and kind of in the moment. And what you're talking about, that there was, I saved it. I can't remember what day it is, but it was in the language of letting go. And it talked about the reading specifically. This is probably about a month or so ago. It talked about the in between, and like a lot of times I think I have to be up or down, or, and sometimes in these storms, there's just periods of calm, like you were talking about. And I can be in the midst of the calm and just kind of waiting for what happens next. But I have to be present. I have to have, that relationship with a higher power and that awareness in order to do it. And I can achieve that today. I can go through whatever, going through and, and be relatively calm, I guess, and not shut down calm, like a genuine calm, and that, hey, this is uncomfortable right now, but it's not the end of the world. And I know better days are coming. Even though, I don't know what to do next. I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I was over the summer, my aunt had reached out to me because my cousin was having some issues with his drinking, and we ended up getting him into rehab, and he got kindly asked to leave the rehab. And anyway, so I went and talked with her and my uncle. And one thing I said to them was, no matter what he does, there's a way for you to be happy, and there's a way for you to have peace. And I know that because of me, the work that I've done, and the work that I did at Shades, and the work that I continue to do, is that no matter what's going on, there's a way for me to have peace and serenity. And that's a huge gift that I've received, because I knew that prior, but I didn't really believe it. I felt like I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. you know, and today I don't feel like I'm doing that. But I mean, tomorrow I might, but as long as I keep, I mean, that being said, I flipped a lady off in traffic the other day, so I'm not perfect, you know, like I still, yeah, she flipped me off first, but I was kind enough to
No,
return the
you're
gift. Yeah.
justified.
Yeah. I was just, you know, returning the favor, but you know, I'm not there yet, so to speak, but I'm grateful for the topic. Yeah.
Good. Well, and thank you, Joe. I love to hear you talk because you're such an inspiration and 12 stepper. And you know, that's when we you know, the gift, the opposite of resentment, self-resentment, and self-pity is love, tolerance, and patience. And the way we learn patience is that waiting out in the hall way, you know, while we're waiting for the door to open. And sometimes those doors don't open the way that we want them to open. And so a window will open instead. So anyway, good to see you. Good to hear you. Glad you're here. Thanks. Yeah, okay, who's next? Who's next? TJ. See, I'll call on if you don't talk.
There are so many great things to say about the storm. I think I'll write a paper and send it to you.
Good.
The reason that there are hurricanes is to mix the hot water from over at Africa in with the cooler water and to keep everything equalized. Now, you know where I'm going with this. We take our calmer and our crazier, and God keeps it equalized if we let him. And as you were saying, one storm takes you to the next better place if you let it.
If you let it.
So that was my first thing I wanted to say. Another was the amazing thing that happened when several weeks ago, my husband had a heart attack. My doctor was playing racquetball with him. He called me at 6:30 in the morning and said, TJ, Wayne is having a heart attack. Meet us here. And I didn't have the, what do I do? What do I do? Giving you a, and I had just spent a year thinking what would horrible things would happen if we divorced and if I had to live a single person and I couldn't take care of myself. And God knew that ahead of time and had already prepared me to know I'm a whole person and I can be okay. And so then I had the strength to just do logical things and do the next thing and not fall crazy all to pieces. So that's my big gratitude today to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, TJ. I loved it. Hear y'all. All right, who's next? Cora.
Good morning, Tennie. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I am the master at letting storms derail me from my abstinence. And what I have learned not too long ago, and I work really hard on, is that it doesn't have to derail me. You know my story, Tennie, and things that have happened in my not too recent past. And I have allowed those things to derail me, my abstinence, and my recovery. And what I'm learning, and this is why this topic is perfect today, is that I don't have to do that. I can take the steps that you outlined and I can learn a lesson from them. I remember the last derailing I had, you said to me, what lesson are you going to take away from this? And I was a little surprised at the question. And then I thought about it and I said, actually, that's a perfect question. What am I going to learn from this experience and what am I going to take away? So part of my work right now is working really hard when those storms happen, and they're going to happen. Sometimes we can control them, sometimes we can't. But that's the time we need our recovery the most. That's the time we need our spiritual fitness the most. And for me, if I go back to the storms when I didn't think they would resolve themselves, or I didn't understand why they were happening to me, and now I understand exactly why they happened, and I trust God, then I know I'm going to be okay. So that's my experience, strength, and hope today, and that's my takeaway. I don't have to let a storm derail me.
Good for you. Good for you. And by the way, I'll just tell you now that I won't have to text you. I am going to be gone. I'm leaving early in the morning to go to Houston to to speak down there. And so I won't be doing my Thursday calls. And I also wanted to say, you know, I do private sessions, phone sessions every Thursday. And I think I have one opening, maybe two. I have people, they commit to 6 times, and then some people continue longer. But anyway, I just wanted to put it out there. If anyone would like to call and I mean, maybe want to, you know, have some private sessions with me, call Cam. I think I have one opening, like I said, maybe two. But anyway, I do it just on Thursdays is the only day. So that's now you know, and I'll talk with you next Thursday. All right, thanks, Cora.
Thanks,
All
Tennie.
right. Anyone else? We've got some time. Okay, Diane.
I've heard a lot of good information today from everybody. And I just wanted to add, the only thing I could add is that if I'm not in self-care, if I'm not practicing HALT, you know, that the storm will wipe me out in a nanosecond, you know, and so it's very, very important that I practice taking care of myself, getting enough rest and eating the right foods, you know, doing the spiritual things in the morning and the evenings, you know, whatever. If I'm not doing those things, then, you know, it can wipe me out. And that I let that happen recently because I got stressed. And when I get stressed, my body reacts in its way that it has always acted because it's still learning, you know, to the new ways of acting. And I didn't rest good. So I had some really tough days, but with the help of my sponsors and the friends that I have in OA, you know, I've been able to manage to pull myself back and get the rest I need and just recognize what was going on. And sometimes that's what I have to have, and what I need is an outside source looking in that can clarify for me what's going on, because my head gets muddled when I'm really tired. So thanks. Thank you for the topic.
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, sometimes we need God with skin on. God lives and works through people. And, you know, we need to reach out, and invariably someone, you know, can speak into our life and help us see things that we can't see ourselves. And that's why we're so privileged. I just count it a privilege to belong to a 12-step program. And church is wonderful. I love church. You know, we go there to worship with other believers. But I've never found a church yet that you could get up in the middle of the church and say, my name is, you know, Tennie, and I am a bulimic and compulsive overeater, and I want to leave this church service and go eat. You know, I mean, that's not appropriate, but you can say that in a 12-step meeting. You can say anything you want. And, you know, when you share something, you know, negative, everybody cries with you. When you share something, I mean, if you share something negative, a lot of times they will laugh with you. They'll begin to laugh with us, you know, at our negativity or our problems that seem so big. But when you share victory, everyone in the room will cry. It's just kind of how we're built, you know, as addicts. We are there to support each other in regardless of what's going through. And I'm not saying churches don't, they do, but we don't have the privilege of being able to just be honest with people a lot of times, like we can in a 12-step program. All righty, that's our time. What we're going to be talking about next week is, let me look what I wrote down. Yeah, I haven't talked about this for a while, but you'll be thinking about it. I'm going to talk about relapse and how to get out of the ditch and stand on solid ground. You know, we can get in a ditch. Y'all know what I'm talking about? In a ditch. And when we get in there, it's like we just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's called relapse. With drugs and alcohol, you take a drug, you take a drink of alcohol, that's relapse. With eating disorders, it's more loosely defined, not a lot, but some. It's like you can step off of the track. You can have a bad abstinent day. You can eat something not on your meal plan. That is a slip. But if you keep slipping and sliding and slipping and sliding, it turns into a full-blown relapse. And it's hard. And I know the first 13 years that I was in OA from 1972 to 1985, I could not get much time because I stayed in relapse off and on, off and on. And what I couldn't get is the honesty about the food. And by the way, the 19th of September this week, was it this week? Yeah. Sunday. I had 36 years of recovery in Overeaters Anonymous. Woo! And with help of people like you all over the world. So hope to see you next Wednesday. And then Tuesday night is our alumni call at 7. Sorry, we wasn't on there last night. We went to see Buddy Holly and it was wonderful. A show called that anyway. It's a Broadway deal. All righty, y'all have a good rest of the week and hope to see you on next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tennie.
Bye. Y'all have a blessed week.
Bye, Tennie.
Bye-bye.